Okay, so good morning to our community and welcome to Political Liaison of February the 13th. I'm going to first begin, as usual, from our agenda by identifying any media that's on the line.
David Moses, CKRZ-FM.
Good morning, David.
Morning.
Okay, seeing David as the only media online, I'll go to the adoption of our agenda, looking to any additions or deletions to the agenda, not a mover and seconder. Moved by Audrey to adopt our political liaison agenda. Is there a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Carrie. Any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. We don't have any delegations or presentations this morning, so that'll lead us into our adoption of our political liaison minutes of January 23rd. Looking to mover and seconder to accept the minutes. Moved by Sherry Lynn. Seconder. Seconded by Greg. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Favor.
Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. We do this section again is Community Service and Supports Director reports. Sorry, I just want to check in with Darren on this one.
Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, Darren. I just wanted to see, will we have our directors in? I don't see anything on.
There are no political advocacy requests related to their reports. The reports are in the Dropbox, and that is the practice. We will have them in if there are specific items or action items that they would like to share with council for political advocacy. So that's the process. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So maybe then if there's any questions or comments to each of the reports that are within your Dropbox, you'll see this section is Parks and Recreation, Ontario Works, as well as the Lifelong Learning Task Force. I see Nathan has his hand raised.
Thanks, Chief, and thanks, Darren, for that update. I love the layout of the report, very thorough, and I had a great understanding of what's happening. The only suggestion I would make for consideration is under the political advocacy, just another bullet of what that wish list is, because I know we don't have all the resources that we want as it relates to Parks and Rec, but just to include, what that wish list is so that we can always keep track and when opportunities come, they'll be top of mind for us to kind of suggest things going forward. So just a suggestion for consideration.
Thanks for that, Nathan. Yes, in fact, that Parks and Rec is part of our long-term financial investment plan that I shared before Christmas. There's a few items embedded in that plan. However, there are always things that are ongoing, so I will make sure that that's raised very clearly, and that's part of our budget exercise, which is also coming up very shortly.
Okay, thanks for that, both Darren and Nathan. Are there any further questions or comments in relation to any of the reports within the Dropbox?
Chief, if they're not, I'll move.
Okay, thanks for that, Nathan. It's moved by Nathan again to accept our Community Service and Supports Director reports as information at this time. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Audrey. And just Darren, I think just maybe one thing also that we could maybe move towards, I know the political advocacy piece, and maybe we could touch base offline as well. But I want to see even just for just generalized updates in terms of, to community of important things, if that's something that we can also maybe add, and even if it's like once a month or whatever quarter, once a quarter, I don't know what the time frame looks like, but at least in terms of the high level community updates, if that's possible as well.
Yes, thanks, Chief. Our new Director of Service Excellence, Holly Smith, is on the line as well with us this morning. And this is one of her areas which falls within her reporting structure as we looked at moving towards our restructuring plan. So part of that will be exactly that updates, not any, some of it may be specific to events that are upcoming as well. But there are other, building out in terms of do we have proper facilities, all of those elements we can talk about for sure.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Darren. Further question, comment, Audrey?
What was her name again? And I have a statement to make. Darren, what's her name?
Holly Smith,
And what is her title?
Director of Service Excellence.
She's actually online with us as well, Audrey.
There you go, Holly. Okay, my point is also with the political advocacy, I think we should be doing long range as well. Not just what you need in the moment, but what do you need 5 years from now? What do you need 10 years from now? So if we know where we're going, then we make sure we plot the course to get there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that's the same kind of point of Nathan in terms of that wish list, because I think what we're doing as well in terms of the upcoming retreat is to look to our political work plan for the for obviously the term, the year, and so forth, and where we've got to further go on certain areas. I think that also relates and correlates rather with Darren's infrastructure plan as well. Okay, it's been moved and seconded for the updated the director reports. Looking to again any final further questions or comments. Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. This next section is councillor reports. So this is just meetings attended. There's two on the list at this time, whether that be again the verbal in follow-up with written. But I'll first begin with Sherry Lynn on her report from the Chiefs of Ontario, the Health Strategic Planning Retreat that she attended on January 31st and February 2nd. And just to note as well, we also are in the midst through the Chief's office of doing our own internal planning retreat with our own health services upcoming. So that's a little just in the works. Over to you, Sherry Lynn.
Yeah, so I did go there from January 31st. February 1st, and I had to leave for the 2nd to get back to Toronto. So this whole health retreat was facilitated by Michael Etherington. There was about 21 people there, and it was not what I expected because I thought they would have did the work and brought it to the team. First of all, it was kind of to help change the process, what's working and what's not working. That was kind of good out of it, but I thought that they would have did the legwork first instead of I think everybody there was like, what's going on? We didn't expect it to be like this. So overall is understanding what each committee was doing and making sure the resolutions. So the resolutions that they had from years and years, they took off 200 resolutions. And we asked like, who made that decision? Like, how come? So they're coming back to the table. So and 20 resolutions is all they have now. So there was a lot of questions regarding how come it wasn't discussed at the table? How come who made these changes? And overall, the 2 days that I was there, it was just strategic planning, what was working and what's not working, transparency, the coup to the Chiefs table, to Chiefs of Ontario, to get to the Assembly, even to the AFN. So that's what the whole retreat was about. So it was kind of a lot of the, like I said, a lot of the people that were there were kind of questioning like what's going on. And yeah, so that's what it was all about. And again, Michael Etherington did the training. So that's all I can report on. There's nothing political. It was just overall strategic planning. So
Okay,
that's that.
Thank you.
I got a
Nell.
couple other things too, Chief.
Okay, maybe I'll pause first on this item and go to any further questions or comments
Okay, here.
on the health retreat.
I got it.
I'll start with Helen. I'm sorry, Helen, you're on mute.
They were talking about what was working and what wasn't working. Was that in reference to, what was that in reference to?
The communication, like getting things to the tables. And I guess the overall and what I stated was your advocacy. You know, you let us know what's coming down the tube. Like, what's our options? How are we working? So I told them I'm getting mixed up of what your guys is supposed to be doing. Because that's what I thought you guys were doing, like letting us know what's coming down the tube. And I guess my other question was, who's meeting with the government? Because I know when I sat there my first term, the government would come and sit with the table. This committee that I'm on, now it's the staff that's meeting them. So there was a lot of different things like that. And who else was there? Chief Miracle, he had a lot of, because he's been on there since I've been there, and wondering also the transparency and the communication, the processes that go up. Because we did bring up Ford, we did bring up the you know, I said, I thought that's what you do. Yeah. And this work here, I thought that you guys would do internally and bring back to us. I said, I don't know why we're doing this for you.
It seems like it basically like is what's happening legislatively within health, you know, needs to be forthcoming to that committee directly. In a sense, that's why I think what you're referring to, Sherry Lynn, right, in terms of really outlining what those political advocacy pieces are as a whole, and what the concerns are in the regions around health. As obviously we know, health transformation has been on the table for a number of years, and what that looks like. So I think that's something even for ourselves at Six Nations within our own team that, you know, we need to further you know, discuss and have that kind of same type of session in terms of planning and strategy and so forth. Basically going to undertake the same type of exercise to make sure that we're ahead of the game when it comes to different political pieces.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree, Chief. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. There's nothing political. It was just trying to figure out. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that update, Sherilyn. Are there any further questions or follow-up, Helen?
Well, I was just, is that a Chiefs Committee on Health?
Yeah.
Sounds to me like it turned into a technical committee.
Exactly.
It turned into, I think we did their job. I thought they would have did it like internally and tell us, you know, this is what we kind of, is this what's happening? Yeah, I don't know. It was, yeah, Alana thought the same thing, like, what's going on? I said, oh, yeah.
Okay, thanks for that update. Again, Sherilyn, I have Hazel who has her hand raised.
Yeah, I would just like to, for all of us to have a better understanding of health, because it seemed all the discussion revolves around trying to figure out who's doing what and who should be doing what. And for myself, in terms of Six Nations, I believe that we gave our opinion to health services, and that with that transformation, you wanted it to be developed unique to Six Nations, like sort of our own way. And of course, there's always going to be parts of what you have to abide by overall with the government. So I think even us, if we could start meeting
And because I'm wondering about our own health services and like there's a lot of stuff that I think we need to be getting together about, understanding, and everybody needs to understand it because it deals with all of us, all of our residents. And I don't know, I just see the need right now for us to get together about health and see how we're going to handle everything as it pertains to our communities, services, etc. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Hazel. And again, that is forthcoming. Looking to March to have that session. As we know, we're getting fully scheduled for the remaining of this month with our retreat and budget days and so forth. I think it's only going to lead up further to what exactly you're highlighting. Sherry Lynn.
Yeah, that's kind of something that me and Alana Hill discussed, and to bring it back to council. What's going on? What's the planning? Where's it at? What's our options? Even the same with Ford's thing, all those kinds of things. I said, because council needs to know it, because I thought that's what we'd be discussing at this retreat. But so that it is coming, like the chief said, to council.
Okay, thanks for that. Sherry Lynn, are there any further questions or comments in relation to this specific update on COO Health? Okay, I'm not seeing any at this point in time, so I'll maybe just before I go to Councillor Audrey and her report on the education and education learning report, I'll just shift back over to you, Sherry Lynn, for any further updates. As you had mentioned, you had a couple more.
Chief, I sent you that one regarding Suzanne Nicholas, Health and Wellness Manager for AI. She sat beside me in Ottawa, and she wanted to know if we'd be able to send someone from Six Nations that could come and participate on their panel symposium to talk about initiatives, barriers, and success in housing in Niagara Falls on March 8th.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I did receive that, Sherry Lynn. Maybe we can bring this forward because I know obviously Councillor Miller, Helen, has been taking the role, or rather lead in terms of housing. So maybe we can touch base with that, with Helen to see if she's available. Helen?
Oh, this meeting is with AI and it's about housing?
Yeah, it says the purpose of our symposium is to begin as a first step to build an AI house strategy for housing for advocacy to address the needs. But they're trying to work with communities and instead of in silos all the time.
I'm just wondering if this housing strategy's got anything to do with housing authority that's done with the.
Yeah, I think
Yes,
it's.
and I don't know if we should be sitting there because I want council to do its own housing authority. I don't want to fall under AI.
No, I think this is just more of they're looking because obviously we're a lot further ahead than other communities when it comes to housing. I think that's something where we've already made, because they did the engagement sessions or like with the Chiefs of Ontario, right? That was that time with Chris Hewells, went around to the communities and so forth. So I think it's more along the lines of wanting to know our specifics of of successes that we had, some challenges. I don't think they want to try to reach out as much as they can to other communities who are further ahead. I think that's the purpose, right, Sherlyn? Yeah.
Well, I can go if council wants someone to go, I can go.
Okay, we'll put that on the next agenda for our approval on March 8th. Actually, you know what? We could even maybe do it today under scheduling. So maybe we'll just add that quickly under scheduling today. That way it's in the books. Hazel.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind you, Mark, that I had sent a chat that, that I have a report as well of a meeting attended for palliative care.
Okay, sure. While we're on the health discussion, maybe I will ask Audrey if it's okay if maybe we can go to the palliative care report and update just as and then we'll get to yours.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, you may. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that, Audrey. Sherlyn.
And I just have one more. Since we went to Milwaukee to the J treaty border.
Yep.
In Milwaukee, I came back and I did make some emails regarding to some meetings with the Buffalo. Michael Taylor, Chief CBP Officer at US Customs, is looking in April. I'm looking in April, I guess. That just gives us enough time. The other one is the CBA. I did contact her. She's supposed to be getting back to us regarding that meeting. So those two are in the works, and just looking for dates for that one in April for that Michael Taylor.
Okay, thanks, Sherilyn. I actually thank you for CCing me as well. I see the contacts and the emails that you've been sending. Just really quickly as well, because obviously we attended the, from Milwaukee to the Vancouver, basically same type of information from those two. However, again, we'll be providing a more detailed report on the J Treaty stuff, obviously from the 4 technical tables that are in place. I think 2 of which are operating at this point in time, and then when they meet and so forth. Because I know even talking with Lori, there's specific issues that have come in since then that we need to kind of work to solution on what that looks like. So forthcoming on further details on the J Treaty stuff as well, the JTPA. Looking to Hazel. Hazel, I just want to check, is that the same hand you had up, or is that a new question? I think it might be the same. Over to you, Helen.
Yeah, I just want to give a brief update too on the treaty, J Treaty Border Alliance meeting in Vancouver and Washington.
Sure. So again, even further to that, I know again, we want to be able to. I think it's the most movement that we've seen in quite a while that we're making at that level. So again, further details on our report as well will be forthcoming. So I'll add that as well to the list. Helen, are there any further questions or comments to any of Sherilyn's updates? Okay, and if not, I'll shift over to Hazel for the palliative care meeting update.
Yeah, I attended a palliative care meeting. Can't even find where the date of it was, but anyway, at that particular meeting, there was myself and Melba and Darren, along with a palliative care hospice coordinator, Janet Gasparelli, the portfolio lead, and Alana Hill, and Vince Longboat. The one thing that stood out most in this entire meeting was the fact that we were informed that the sponsor had withdrew his offer. I didn't know, well, nobody had known that. Apparently, and I think Darren can speak to that he had received a letter from the sponsor, but I haven't seen, I don't know if anyone else has. The team more or less discussed not letting that discourage, but planning to go forth and still plan to have a hospice built. It may not be the same amount of money that would have been with a log hospice. So basically that's all. And then Janet was going to talk with Ontario Health about capital funding proposal and possibly a corporate funding position. She said she will start the briefing note for council for the package to be presented with new plan of hospice build. I had inquired about a piece of land because their idea always was that it would be a nice place to have the hospice located next to water, or you could really create a peaceful garden for families to sit outside. And so I approached the one person who does live near the water, but I couldn't get a real clear picture. So I still want to further meet with him and see if they would consider selling some of the couple acres that is right by the water. And I think that would be in line with what their original intent was. So all of this is, they're still going to be pursuing to get this hospice up from what that meeting said. There was one event in that meeting that I wondered, they had a clipping from the Turtle Island News on the table when I got there, and it dealt with some comments that were asked in our, I guess it would have been in the open session when we were talking about the hospice, and they had it on the table there. I don't know what the intent of that clipping was to be, but I know I had made comments, and as did Helen Miller. And when everybody became aware that the hospice sponsor had withdrawn his offer, it sort of became a moot point after that. So I don't know what that intent was. And I'm wondering, like, is that proper protocol if people start bringing what the paper has put out and bringing it into a meeting? It's like, you know, what you say and what the paper writes sometimes may not be in the same context of how you meant it or whatever. Not saying anything wrong with the reporting. It's just, you know, it just doesn't make sense to me that that would even be allowed. So that's all I'll say on that. The withdrawal of the offer from the sponsor was most important. Apparently there's a letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that update, Hazel. And again, just want to touch base with Darren as well, because regardless of which, I know it's still very much a need within community, and that we still very much are planning to get that complete. Over to you, to Darren.
Yes, and we are, as Hazel noted, the team is still actively working on the project. There's been a lot of good work. There's a business case that was put together in terms of the staffing needs and the funding needs. In fact, we have a conditional approval for the operations of the facility. We just need to have sort of a, I guess, more solid plan in terms of that facility to kind of get things rolling. So Vince has been attending the meetings because he's our technical services guy to look at their needs of the facility, i.e. three-phase power, obviously water. So all of those elements have created a couple of options for us. Hazel offered a third option. So we're looking at those to like determine which one's the best use option for us, and then we'll proceed from there, along with the additional capital funding through the province.
Thanks for that update, Darren. Further question, comment?
Melba. I have a question. Darren,
Sure.
You were going to get try to talk with Glenn, and I'm wondering if you were successful and what's the outcome of it, because it's my understanding we really need to finalize this. I'm not sure if a letter had came to yourself or someone else concerning the offer that was no longer there.
Yeah, the letter actually was delivered to the chief's office. It was addressed to myself, just a formal notification that the sponsor was withdrawing the support for the project. I followed up with an email to a couple of contacts representative of the sponsor, and just kind of extending that olive branch, like, let's talk about possible supports in the future. I understand that there's other conflicting priorities for this individual, so that's all I know at this point. So I just wanted to open the door, and perhaps he'll come forward in the future. So I just wanted to make sure that that's happened. There has been no further correspondence subsequent to that.
Thank you.
Thanks for that update. Further, Sherilyn, I believe, was in queue next, then over to Helen.
I'm good. Thanks.
Thanks, Sherilyn. Helen?
No, I just wanted to say this is a lesson to be learned. we had acted on, I'm assuming, had we acted on this generous offer right at the beginning, something might have happened. But you can't leave, when somebody offers to provide money to do a project, and you're sitting there almost 2 years later and you haven't done anything, these people, they commit money to different things, and other priorities are going to come over top of if you keep stalling and not getting it done, and other priorities are going to come up that are probably just as important to the person with the money. But we can't do that. We can't get a generous offer from someone to do something for us which we desperately need, and then not do nothing for almost 2 years, and then go to the person and say, okay, we're ready now. Well, heck, he's probably 10 projects ahead of us. So I think this is a lesson to be learned. And in terms of Hazel's comment, I'm only assuming because I wasn't there. They're probably mad because we said stuff in the paper. And I said exactly what I'm saying today. If we had moved on this project when he first presented it to us, we might have had our hospice. But you can't sit there for a year or 2 years making plans and then all of a sudden deciding that you want to do an hospice now when you know what I mean? So this is really a good lesson to be learned by everyone. The next time somebody offers us money to do something, let's do it as soon as we can, not sit around and wait. They didn't even want to take the land that he offered. So that's all I want to say. Is just we've learned a lesson here, and unfortunately, it's come to us losing out on an hospice that we so desperately need with all our people getting cancer.
Thanks for that update, Helen. I think, and I agree too, in terms of lessons to be learned and so forth as well. But there was a lot of back and forth when it came to the property, the land, and that was the main issue as well. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's difficult when we've had multiple people donate to this community. In fact, look at our fire hall. That was completely donated by
and they did it right away.
And they did it, yeah, exactly. So I think that's something that when you commit to something, you also got to look to also the further timelines. I think that's something. The commitment is much bigger than what it looks like in terms of getting it done. So I think that's another story. Over to you, Sherilyn.
Yeah, and I agree with Helen, because this has been sitting on the shelf it's been 3 years. And I think also too, even the land situation, we had to bring them at the beginning, and council had to tell them, pick some land and let's get it moving. And here we are sitting here, and for sure it's quite the learner. So I hope we do things differently when people are coming to us, and if we need to add more staff somewhere or what's going on to kind of make sure not everybody's overload on doing things like this, with this generous people giving this money for things to be built in the community that's needed. So again, for sure, like what Helen said, hopefully lesson learned, and we can do it another way. And if it does come again, we really approach it differently. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's Melba.
Thank you, Sherilyn, for your comments. Over to you, Melba.
Yes, I would hope too that lessons are learned, but I'm not sure of that. And is council sure of that? So I would hope that we would get a report from Darren how this is going to go forward. Such a huge gift to the community, and now it's not there. So hopefully we can hear from Darren the outcome of how this lesson is learned. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Melba. Are there any further questions or comments in relation to Hazel's update? Okay, seeing or hearing none, then I'm gonna just and we'll do a resolution in terms of accepting as information at the end of the updates. So at this point in time, I'll shift over to Audrey on her update at the education.
Good morning, everybody. I sent you my report emailed this morning, in fact, just a little while ago, and it's 17 pages long, so I'll just try to gloss over some of the highlights, and then you can read the rest and let me know if you have more. And also there are slide presentations that I will, the Chiefs of Ontario will be forwarding to me, and I will forward them to you as well if you want to know more. It was a 3-day conference on language and education, and the first day and a half centered around language. Amos Key was the beginning speaker, and he tells us that our Genesis tells us we come from the civilization of our Creator. We come from the sky world, and we are the star people. Hongwe Hongwe are the divine people of our Creator. In 1980, well, we were colonized. We made good discoveries in Ishwegan. There are over 70,000 languages in the world. One language dies every 14 days. Says only 2 countries have devoted to the sacredness of Mother Earth. And it's the Mandarin and Hindi are the most used, as well as English. English is the killer language. The best education for a people is immersion and not second language. School boards in Ontario can offer 5 language programs. They must make sure the school boards offer our languages. Ontario only recognizes 6 languages in their schools. L1, it's a level 1, are the proficient speakers who grew up in the language. L2 are second language learners, and you need over 4,000 hours of language. It takes 35 years to recover our fluency. In the L1, Gawanio, we have bilingual and can lead these ceremonies and are raising their kids in the language. We need grandparents, parents, and children is the best scenario in our community to speak the language in the home. So it's not a school job, it's a community job to teach language and to use the language as much as you can, even if it's just one word becomes 2 words and so on. We have a dormant language commission called AMO. It's sleeping and we need to raise it back up in Amos's opinion. He recorded our songs and our ceremonies. Most have 2 sets of values and virtues and ethics. They have a strong moral compass. They have a healthy emotional quotient. And the elders have humor. And I think we all have humor, and that's what keeps us strong. And many grandparents are raising their grandchildren, and they demonstrate that language is a health determinant. Excuse me. They use this Joshua Fishman formula, and it tells us when our languages will die. And according to Amos, Puga language will die in 2243. Ian Martin is a professor at York University, and he has 2 papers he gave to Chiefs of Ontario. One on the Languages Act, and that's on the website. He examined the weakness of the Language Act. It does not give us rights. It's weak and only looks at programs. And AIAI is having and the ministry are having a language conference. Hopefully I'll find out where and when. Marsha Ireland is a person who is deaf, and a lot of credit has to be given to her. She got up and spoke, and she did sign language, and she revitalized the Oneida sign language. And it's quite wonderful because it gives everybody a voice. And Max Ireland and her have 5 deaf children, and it gave her a sense of identity and well-being. So that's what she does now, is she tries to improve the quality of voices for people who basically don't have a voice. So she's doing wonderful work. Dr. Lorena Fontaine spoke about UNDRIP and let us know that the languages are not in the Constitution. French has $2.7 billion dollars over the next 5 years for early childhood, government services, resources to train teachers, post-secondary for French. Heritage Canada gives money out, but it's the most you can get, I think, is like 250,000. So you have to know what you're doing and plan ahead. Well, one reserve can't go over 300,000. We have over 60 Indigenous languages, and this is not enough for us to do our work. French is partnered with the community, early childhood and schools. They are funded by the government. Language should be taught in the homes and augmented at schools. The Indigenous Language Act has no duty to fund, and that's the real problem for us. The Supreme Court said we are entitled to use our language, but they didn't put any funding in the legislation, and they didn't put it in the legislation that we have those rights. Parents and children have rights to language, Section 23, the Constitution, what was meant to correct the minority languages so they were not assimilated by the English. Section 23 have school boards in French and English. They have French schools for languages and culture and French immersion. They have school boards so parents can be involved in determining what their kids learn. In the 70s, Manitoba Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, they saw a need for teacher training to teach the language, and that's what they fought for. There are immersion programs on 6 nations, and we are the leaders in Canada right now. Northwest Territories will have their languages as official, which is a really good thing. Since in 2016, the Prime Minister proposed Indigenous Language Act in 2019, and we need our rights put into legislation. So that's what we should be working at over 635 First Nations in Canada. Everybody should be working together on that. The tool is we now have a standing committee to improve the language. We have language rights. We need the legislation improved so our rights are spelled out and the rights for language and education. We need ministers working together. And right now, when you go to talk to one minister, they'll say, go talk to somebody else. But if everybody who's dealing with language sat at the table, I think we'd get a lot farther ahead. We need a teacher training program to teach the teachers. We need 1,200 Indigenous language teachers in Manitoba. And that's probably something we should be looking at here as well in data collection for 6 nations. How many language teachers do we need? And what languages are they speaking? This could be the land-based program that needs to be paid for. We need curriculum and AV, oral speakers using language to pronounce our language correctly. We have the right to do this. We need language nests, specialized entities to fund. We need research and studies. We need the same kind of funding the French and the English have. And we need to support our leaders so they are equipped to advocate for us. The ministry needs to listen to us and contribute to under Article 14. We have a right to establish our education system and our programs in our culturally appropriate methods of teaching, i.e. land-based learning. We have our own cultural appropriate ways to teach language. The province has to offer our languages in their schools. And this has recently been done in one of the schools in Brantford. They're taking it as a second language, but they're offering Mohawk to one of the schools which have like 26% enrollment of First Nation students. I would suspect the majority of them are from 6 nations. And it says we have a right to go to university and carry on our language and learning. So that's only 2 pages, Mark. You want me to go through all of these or?
No, I think what we,
like people to read them.
Yeah, we'll read the report, but I think in terms of, we've had our templates for the report, because, it's one thing to go through, all the detail, which again, we want to figure out, the high level pieces in the political pieces specifically to what we're trying to work with. So again, this is all part of our retreat. We could further discuss when we, when we bring forward, or when we attend certain committees and events and gatherings, whatever that looks like, when we want to come back to say, here's the high level overview of what occurred, and then what is the next best steps from where we're at that point politically. So we're gonna still work on this and maybe even perhaps look to some training across the board, because I think that way we're all on the same page when it comes to the format. So once we adopt the format, that would be more smoother when actually given the update. So I think that's something that we could further discuss at the retreat. But looking to maybe at this point ask for any specific questions or comments in relation to Audrey's report. It is within our email, so if you would like to further review and further send Audrey questions and comments that way as well. But at this time, I'll look specifically to any further questions or comments in relation to the Chiefs of Ontario Education report.
It's Melba.
Sure, I'll start with Melba, then over to Michelle.
Yeah, it's a very good report. It's long. It covers a lot of areas, so it's very much appreciated, and everyone's reports, even though I was zooming the world and missed a few. Anyway, I wanted to say that I think Amos's report here certainly coincides the way I think anyway, and council knows that I've been saying, you know, we need an elder or a knowledgeable person who at least has part of the language in every one of our departments. We don't need piecemeal where people are making a presentation and go for months without coming back. We need something like the land base where you have people who know the language and other parts of our culture. So I'm hoping we will discuss this even further, like you said, Mark, because it's very important. And you know that I've made those kind of ideas where we need to know how to introduce ourselves. So Joe could do that easily if you're Mohawk, that is, and other people could do it for us if you're Cayuga or Seneca or whatever. So anyway, I think it's a good report, and I think it's really important. It raises our self-esteem and our identity and who we are. You know, I get concerned about the children who, you know, are called, you know, racial slurs concerning who we are. And if you have a strong identity and proud of who you are, that's not going to bother you. Not at all. You're not going to get in fights. Your mind is going to stay clear and healthy. So that's my little spiel for today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Melba, for your comments as well. And I think just to highlight the piece of what Melba touched on, it's then now looking to these reports of any potential action to then be forwarded on to look at that list, so that we are then now in front and get our proper teams or persons at the technical level to then start to do any work that we may need politically on those pieces. So it's all working on that format so that it's high level and it can move to the next step of action. Over to you, Michelle.
Thanks. And I just wanted to say, on a political level, I think we should be investing more into our language commission. That's what I would hope would come forward. And I mean, even today, I've asked Karen, what do we need? And they are doing an environmental scan to see what's in our community, where we need to go, because we focused on 2 languages really, but there are 4 other languages that we should be focusing on. So, you know, we knew what the legislation was going to say. It's done that in every aspect of environment, housing. So why don't we just take it upon ourselves and put forward, $2 million to language each year. And maybe this is something we can work with the Confederacy, and they invest $2 million too. And we should all be speaking and opening. I think Melba didn't even challenge us, but she gave us an idea that we all should be introducing ourselves. I've heard Sherry Lynn do it. I've learned now, taking classes to introduce myself in the language. So we need to be making that step. And I think that's politically what we should be doing, investing money in what is needed here at Six Nations, as well as taking it upon council should be. And I really like what Darren, I'm seeing there is the weekly word in all 6 languages. But there's a lot more we can do. And I would expect, even when people are answering the phones, it is in our language. So those are just, I think, political areas we should be moving on very, very soon.
Okay, thanks, Michelle, for your comments as well. I'll look to, I see Audrey has her hand raised.
Yeah, just to follow up on some of that. sitting there and listening to all these people who are devoted to getting language and culture onto their First Nations for everybody. I think it's time that we got all of the people who speak the language and who have programs together. In fact, their language commission is having a summit, I think in the next little while, next couple of weeks. And I've asked Karen to invite everybody who speaks and who wants to further the language, because when the government asks you for what you think, we can't have 20 different voices saying things that are not the same. So we need to be on the same page, asking for money, asking for training, asking for teachers, asking for outdoor education and all the things that go with it. So that's our political remedy there. And it's going to take a while, because we have to also look at assessment. Is language working the way we're teaching it? I know that you have the ability to see, we have some really good stats coming out of Gawaneo, and ETS are doing a great job. And the immersion, adult immersion, I think we got to put more in the adult immersion as well, so that we meet grandparents, parents, guardians, as well as teaching it to them. They can use it in a home. So when the child goes home, she or he have some place to use that language and to reinforce it. And it just kind of snowballs from there to learn more and more language. And it's going to take us a while. It's not a short-term fix. It's a long-term plan. And that's what I was talking about, the long-term strategy that we have to do. And we have to build it, but we have to build it together as a community. And that's the same way with education as well. And I'll do more at the retreat on this, and I'll put it back in that format, and I'll pull out all those parts that where we need the political advocacy for our retreat.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Audrey. And I think just even further, we definitely have, as priority as well, and can always do better in looking to investments, but have always made language and culture priority. I think one of the pieces that we've learned, I think, and again, don't entirely quote me on this, but I think we're over $10 million and potentially more since the last, specifically last 8 years even, that we have been investing within a different language, not just the commission, but programs as well. So I think obviously, can look to the increasing of that investment. I think that's always needed, and looking at how, to Audrey's point, is the deliverables, because we know we have to see at the end of the day, the end goal is more speakers. Regardless of what level, we know that, that's something that is always going to be a challenge as we continue on our learning paths and so forth. So again, good points raised, and do look forward to how we continue to further support the bigger picture of creating and making sure that we have more speakers. Are there any further questions or comments to Audrey's report? Okay, seeing or hearing none, then at this point in time, maybe just I'll look to Helen. I know she did touch base or wanted to just high-level brief on the JTBA. So maybe I'll just go over to there, and then there'll be also a forthcoming report on our end as well, just to the different requests at that table. I know between Lori and I think even Sherry Linden might be on the technical committee. The first one, again, is the right of entry, which we've already been working on, and the second one is border crossing experiences. So I think I'll pass it over to Helen at this point and further look to a detailed, more update on specifics, high-level political at our next session. Helen?
Okay, so we there was a meeting on January 31st to February 1st. We attended the first day in Vancouver and went through different things that had been discussed at Milwaukee. Then we moved down to Washington and were hosted by the Lumi territory. We got to stay in their nice casino and everything, and had meetings there. And they were quite surprised, because there was like 100 people that had attended. There was more than that in Vancouver, but there was 100 people attended the one in Washington, along with myself and Chief Hill and Lori Miller, the lands membership manager. So we all attended. Ava Hill, thank goodness, had submitted a report, so I'm just going to read points from hers because there's no point in doing another one. So the key points was they provided information on the different tables that are set up to deal with this. There's one what they call the high level table, and I know that was done before Washington. Then there's the governance table, I think that Mark attends, and there's 4 technical tables that they have established. The first one is right of entry. The second one is border crossing experience. The third one is identifications as travel documents, and the second one is entry of goods. So right that day at the meeting, Laurie Miller was identified to sit on the right of entry. So they already had their first meeting that day, that afternoon after the session got over. They met for about an hour or so. So far, they didn't have anybody to sit on the other 4, but they want people from all the different communities to sit on these different committees. So they're hoping it's not all the same committees that are sending representatives. I just wanted to comment on the one called Border Crossing Experience. So it's really important for all of us from now on to start recording whenever we get complaints about border crossing. They want everybody to start recording the stories. So, you know, you get phone calls from people, I had this issue crossing the border. We got to start recording all of those so council can start doing that when you get calls to make sure we record it. The chief's office can start recording any complaints they get. And then at some point in time, they're going to start dealing with all the different issues. I think they want to find out what all the different issues are that people are getting. So it's really important to keep it down. And I don't know if we want to have a contact person to tell the stories to, or whether it be somebody in the chief's office or what, but we can talk about that. Most of the day was listening to people. There's so many different issues that people have, and it's quite interesting to listen to them all. And then there was an update on the Tribal Border Crossing Parity Act, which is in reference to the trying to get rid of the 50% blood quantum required by the US. They're working very hard to try and get rid of that. There was a presentation on what they're calling the tribe to tribe opportunities in the 2023 Farm Bill. There's a Farm Bill going forward in the US. And the reason they're interested in this Farm Bill is because they want to start changing things so that people can transport different foods across the border for traditional foods and whatnot across the border, because right now there's so many different foods that you can't take across the border. So they're working on trying to do something about that. So people want to, you know, you might want to go visit your family in the States and take something with you, and they might say you can't take it in. So they're working on that with that Farm Bill. And they're really trying to get really, really organized good. And another thing that one of the representatives, I think his name's Robert Porter, he wants people to join this J-Treated Border Alliance Association or group, whatever, like a member, and wants them to start paying money, like say $5,000 a membership, because they have no money. They do not have a budget to work with. So they just rely on, I know when you guys went to Milwaukee, the nation that supported that conference was quite generous. Laurie was telling me about all the food and everything. The Lummi Nation wasn't quite as generous. We just had snacks because they didn't have lots of money. Or I don't know, I guess they didn't want to spend their money maybe. They do have a casino, so they must have money. So everybody commented about the difference between the one at the Lummi Nation and the one in Milwaukee when it came down to food. They did give us a good lunch. So he mentioned something about, yeah, trying to have everybody be members, different nations be members, and then they can donate money. I think it sounded similar to the Iroquois Caucus, what the Iroquois Caucus does. Like they ask each member to donate certain amounts of money every year so they could have a budget. It would be something like that, I think. Anyway, that was my first meeting I attended in about 3 years, I think. I remember I attended one in Niagara Falls. So I found it very interesting. And I'm glad they're moving ahead and doing different things. And I hope it really works, what they're doing, that we can do something about it. Border crossing. Yeah, I'm asking everybody to write down, and just write it down. If somebody phones you, write down their little story. So we can start collecting stories about the border crossing things, so that when they present things to government, I guess they want to be able to use data, telling people these are the issues that we're encountering. So those are just a brief thing. And like Mark said, I think they're going to be doing more, I think. I'm not sure. A report. We need to maybe think about putting people on those technical committees, because I'm thinking it's probably going to be Mohawk communities and the Kootenays that's really going to be taking part in these technical committees, because I think maybe a lot of the bands might not have money to be traveling and different things, but I was willing to sit on that. Border crossing experience if they can't find enough people to sit there. But if they find enough people, that's fine. But if they don't, I would sit there. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Helen, and we'll further follow up as well, because I know part of the the work of this is the work plan. So it's the alliance itself has built out what that work plan looks like, and maybe just for community's sake, for updates wise, we have a website. So it's the jtreatyborderalliance.com, where everything that Helen has mentioned and updated is on this website. So you could follow along to see when different progress is made in the different areas, like you've mentioned, even on the Farm Bill on the US side, the information, just general information on the Parity Act, CBSA, all those pieces are within the website. Again, it's jtreatyborderalliance.com. And again, what we'll further continue to do is align, and Helen's right in terms of the Mohawk communities. I mean, I think obviously we've been the drivers, but it was nice to get over to the West Coast, because we know that we're stronger in numbers, and that was and obviously still hearing and them sharing their experiences at the borders as well. And I think we need to even start to look when we talk about, because we know the border doesn't exist, that imaginary line, that's there for us anyways, and what that looks like. So I think, the other piece that we also discussed, I know we talked about this in Milwaukee further, is, the need to further, obviously US has done a little bit more recognition when it comes to J Treaty itself than Canada. The other piece I think that's important is and this is one of the technical tables as well, as in terms of the entry of goods. I think the bigger picture that we need to look at when we talk about even trade from nation to nation and what that looks like, that's something that I think that has been on the table for some time. But nonetheless, there's a lot of work happening. The ball is moving, and again, especially on the piece of the quantum, when we discuss that issue. So there's a lot of information on that website that you could follow along with, and we'll continue to update council as again progress is made, specifically on the J Treaty Border Alliance. Hazel.
I just want to ask, it might be a silly question, but it seems like this topic has been in the works for so many years, like the J Treaty, and what it all means And the only time that it gets relatively honored, I guess, is in July of each year when you can go across to the states freely and come back. If they know that, if that's all known and understood to honor that in one day and then it goes back to how it's always been the next day, are they close to realizing that maybe they should open that border for natives to allow them to pass freely back and forth?
Yeah, I think, just on that point, Hazel, and Helen sure can jump in on this too. I think that's something that we need to put more emphasis on as a community as well when it comes to the IDLA. We know that the Indian Defense League of America is the IDLA is the one who generally is the host and organizer of the border crossing and what that looks like. But over the years, it's what I've noticed, and I think we've all noticed, it's really been a decrease of participation. And that's something that I think, I remember even as a kid, it being one of the biggest events around to go over the border crossing day in July. So I'm wondering maybe if that's something that we need to breathe more life in and get that back going when it comes to community participation, because I think that's one way of again recognizing and them looking at the bigger picture, like for Canada's side. And that's something that, again, the high level, when we break down not just from the technical tables, but the high level tables and the governance tables, the high level is when we're directly meeting with government and what that looks like. So I guess to answer your question, Hazel, it's in a roundabout way, something that I think we need to put more emphasis on, but also, looking with the IDLA, but also looking to, furthering that discussion point specifically. And again, this is all ongoing work at that higher level, the high level table with the government that's been established. Ellen, not sure if you wanted to add anything further.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I see a lot of movement from the years that I've been sitting here regarding border crossing. There's a lot more movement now than when there used to be, because like Mark said, they've set up this governance table, these high technical or high tables. Another thing that I wanted to mention, what they've already done too, is is it CBSA?
Yes.
In the States, they've set up an Indigenous department now to deal with border crossing, different things. So they had them there at the Lummi Nation presenting what they do. So that's a big step. Everybody saw that as a big step, that they've set this department up. I don't know if they're going to do anything, but at least they're listening and they set it up. So that's a big step. The other thing I wanted to mention was there was a nation there, but I can't remember who it was because I don't have my notes in front of me. They've done their own border crossing card and it's been accepted by the US. She went through the whole process of how they did it and how it works and what they do. They have a whole big department that's doing this card. And it was really very interesting. And I wondered if the caucus maybe, or even Six Nations might be interested in listening how these people got this card all set up and everything. It almost looks like the white card over here. And it is being accepted by the US. So I didn't know if the caucus might have interest in, I don't know if Abram had interest in listening to this woman, or he may have, I don't know. But I thought it was good what they're doing. I just can't remember what tribe it was because I don't have my note here, but she went through a whole presentation. It would be on the that site Mark talked about as well. It's probably on the jtba.com site, her presentation, but it was interesting. So that's food for thought. I don't know if we'd want to listen to her or whether the caucus might want to listen to her. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, yeah, I agree. I think that's the beauty of attending these sessions as well, is looking obviously to see what other nations are doing and going through, right? That's something where this group has obviously come together to say, well, this is collective. So here's our challenges. Here's some of our successes. now what can we do as that collective? So there's definitely more to come on this specific issue. But at this time, I'll look to Greg, has his hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. I thought several years ago there was a court case that was brought up against Canada, and I just want to know if you were aware of that, or maybe we could find that on the site. I don't recall the results of that, or if that's still in the courts. Could you give us an update, maybe?
I'm not current, or I'm not up to like in terms of the results of, I think because there was a couple too, to be honest.
Exactly.
That we can, they discussed that at the, I think it was in Milwaukee, trying to again define what that, because the big thing right now is UNDRIP, right? And that how that correlates with, and they're trying to breathe life of the Jade Treaty through UNDRIP. And that's something that I think, with Canada, they were one of the last to sign on. So I think that's something that, the part of the work, and this is all highlighted within the work plan of the Jade Treaty Border Alliance itself, can further, drive in that lane. So we'll do some further follow-up, Greg, to your specifics, but I'm pretty sure there was, I think, at least 2 of the court cases on that. Helen?
Yeah, if there was a court case, I think I kind of remember. It probably would have had something to do with Mike Mitchell, because Mike Mitchell was working for years trying to get a card done to cross the border. He was doing a lot of, I think him and that Norton, I can't think of his name, we're working on that a lot. But what I saw from what I heard in Washington and what I know Mike was doing, the difference between the two, I think, was Mike was going around trying to get approval from Canada to do a card. He was trying to get approval from Canada to recognize a card before any work was done on a card. The way this border crossing card the lady was talking about, it didn't sound like they did that. It sounded like they did all of the work and then presented the card. So if it's got anything to do with border crossing, it's probably Mike Mitchell. If you want to look up his history.
Yes. Thanks for that, Helen. Are there any further questions or comments in relation to the Jade Treaty meetings attended? Again, more updates will be forthcoming to community, especially in the form of our newsletter. Yes, I hear you, Melba. In the form of our newsletter and other communications, so that we can again get this information out to the community on progress. Melba, and then over to Sherry Lynn.
Yes, I recently met a couple that are originally from Cattaraugus but live in Washington State right now. They talked of a child welfare case. In our Go Ojuanidao, one of the employees were involved. And at that time, the judge had to make a legal comment or rule. So there's been precedent set concerning our children or our people crossing to and fro from wherever they want to go. So I think we need to look into that. I can get that woman's telephone number, and she's got a long story about child welfare and how we are allowed, the judge said, allowed to freely go back and forth across the border. So I'll get that number, and I'll see that it gets to administration so it can be looked into. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for that, Melba. Yes, I think that's something where, and that's again what we're trying to pull all together in terms of experiences and different things that are happening in the different nations and with our different members and so forth, so that we can start to build out even further the work plan that has been developed. Sherry Lynn?
Just when you're done, Chief, I just have another thing I want to bring up about Brantford General Hospital Committee.
Okay, is there any further questions to the Jade Treaty Border Alliance? Again, I'll look to a motion to accept all these updates and reports as information after we're complete.
I'll move.
Okay, oh, sorry, just 1 second. Melba, if I can go to Helen.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention when we were going to Washington, somebody cleared it at the border that all of us that were going to the J Treaty Border Alliance meeting could go through the Nexus line and we'd get whizzed right through. And it did happen. We went to the Nexus and he just says, where are you going? We said, J Treaty Border Alliance, go ahead. And I thought to myself, why can't we do that all the time for First Nations people? Why just that one minute? We should be able to use the Nexus like that all the time.
Yeah.
First Nations.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that was a good point to be raised, actually. We were saying it
Yeah.
there, in terms of, well, if they can do it for this event,
Yeah.
why is it that they can't always do it in terms
And it
of,
was so easy, just whizzing through.
yeah. So well, again, there's lots of work happening, so we'll continue to update as we progress. I'm going to just really quickly switch gears and head over to Sherry Lynn on just her last update on the Brantford General Committee, Brantford General Hospital.
Yes, I received an email from Counselor Andrea King from New Credit. And it says, I'm emailing you to contact with Sarah Fretz from Brantford General Hospital. She is looking to invite a Six Nations community family patient representative to sit on the BGH Patient Family Advisory Council. That's a mouthful. So I'm not sure. I emailed this Sarah Fretz to give me more information and a request. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I did get this email, and I did send an email to this Sarah to send what her request is for Six Nations.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sherilyn. So maybe we can further touch base to maybe identify if a person who is available for that piece. So I'll work with you,
Yeah.
Sherilyn.
Yeah, and if
Well,
there is, does anybody want to sit there, or are we going to sit there? That was all.
I think maybe we should start first, examine the deliverables and what's happening at that level to really further define who would be the best to sit. So maybe we can further discuss that as opposed to designating someone at this point. Melba?
yeah, we have questioned Lori Davis Hill when she was in place a few times concerning this. And at that time, it was my understanding that she sat on this committee, but never did really get back to us and really for us to understand, are they still requiring someone? So that's good that a call came in and certainly reminds us as a council that there's needs up there. We also had a mental health counselor up there. She didn't last very long. And said it was too discriminatory up there. So we need to look at that where a mental health counselor is in place consistently on a day-to-day basis. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that. Melba, Sherilyn?
Sorry, Chief, that's just legacy. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I again do appreciate the updates from meetings attended. Again, it's we want to shift, and this is where we'll further discuss at our retreat in terms of just format and the political of advocacy that we need to do on the higher level. I mean, it's always good, the information. We, in a sense, to this, as you see, we went from health to education to J Treaty to, so now we need to make sure that we're organized in a way that the action follows up with some of these pieces. So again, Nyawa to each of you for your updates. And at this point in time, I'll look to a mover and seconder to accept all of our reports from our counselors of meetings attended. And then again, we'll look to further discuss this matter in terms of action items at our retreat. We're looking to a mover and
I'll move
seconder.
again.
Moved by
I'll move
Melba.
again,
Thank
Melba.
you. Is there a seconder?
I'll second Hazel.
Seconded by Hazel. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, moving on into this is the community healing update. Our event is upcoming this Saturday, the 18th. I'll look to, I believe, Brooke is online, who might be the most in terms of the details of what will be happening and where counselors can come and assist during this event. Maybe I'll at this point just look to Brooke to give a high-level overview of the event and things that are planned.
Morning, Chief. I'm actually gonna pass the mic to Shirley Johnson, and she's just gonna update everyone.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I didn't even see Shirley. My apologies, Shirley.
Oh, that's okay.
Over to you, Shirley.
Yes, good morning, Chief and Council. Just as a note, just as a community member, I just want to thank Council for taking the time for doing your reports and reporting back. It's encouraging to see that, you know, that there's we've got something to hear from outside of the res. And so anyway, but with that being said, I also just wanted to let you know a little bit about the planning for the community healing event. We hit the ground running. It's been a fast turnover, and we've got a few things that we're finishing up, but we're looking forward to Saturday and having just a fun time with the community. And and the theme is on healing and coming together and the community's well-being. So the event will start at 10 a.m. And we'll finish up at 4. We got a full program for the day. We will have vendors at the community hall that will have that are geared towards wellness and healing. We will have both a traditional opening, and we will also have a Christian opening. There will be some contemporary entertainment. We've got some dancers coming and also some traditional singers, as well as gospel singers. The event will run, as I said, from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. There will be a grab and go lunch for the community from 12 till 1. We will be providing transportation to, as you'll see in the advertisement, it's available to those that call in and reserve a seat for transportation. For those that don't have transportation, and our priority, of course, are our seniors and others within the community, but you'll just have to read the flyer and see how they've had that prioritized. Other than that, we'll have there'll be a sacred fire burning outside where people can take their tobacco and burn the tobacco on the outside. That's going to be set up outside. We've also have Elva Jameson. She's got some tea that that you can take home and make. It's a healing tea. As well as I said, is the vendors that will be providing some information on services that can help towards healing and comfort. I just want to thank you, Chief, for coming up with this, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I just hope it turns out well. We've done our best to plan as best as we can in such a short notice, but with all intent, it's for the community, and we're looking forward to having the community attend.
Okay, thank you, Meow, Shirley, for that update. And again, you know, I think it was just with, you know, all of the sadness and tragedy, and there's been a lot that I think our community has been going through over the last couple of years, as well as just most recent. So, you know, this is the first of many really that we want to do, and really bringing our community together, and trying to, again, just have some positivity and really get you know, on a healing path as a community together. And so really want to say nyawa to the ladies and group who have been organizing. I know We've partnered up with many other organizations and departments as well who will be set up, as well as some community entertainment. So it's really meant to be of a positive event for our community, and again, just to come together. So that's happening again this Saturday, February 18th. It begins at 10 a.m., goes till 4 p.m., and it's located at the community hall. So thank you, Shirley, for that update. Sherilyn.
Is this in the papers for this week, or is it out on our sign? Just so the people who don't have technology, that's all, because again, it is short notice, and great work, ladies, for getting it all put together. I just want to make sure everybody can go and experience this Saturday.
I know there was a save the date. Maybe Shirley, you can confirm if we're actually able to get in a newspaper ad, even if it's a full ad in both of the papers.
Sure, we have it in the newspaper. It's going to be announced on the radio, on the community bulletin board. Also, prior to this, we did have the save the date, and so yeah, it should be in for Wednesday. And also, I just wanted to let you know too, with regards to the actual day of the event will be live streamed as well, and Pinks will be doing our sound and video for that day. It'll also be broadcasted over the radio stations for an hour. So we've covered just about every media outlet that we possibly could. And I just also wanted to mention that another thing is that everything that you will see at that event is all local. It's all local people. So yeah.
That's really, really good. Thanks for that, Shirley. Okay, are there any further questions or comments in relation to our community healing event plan? Again, it's not a one and done type of thing. Our goal is to continue to have these types of events. And when it comes to, again, that we all experience loss and sadness, and this is just again one way that we're trying to bring our community together. Greg?
Yeah, great work, Shirley. Do you need, I guess you need volunteers, do you not? What time do the volunteers show up?
Okay, so that is our next thing. We do need volunteers. This is one of the first times when we're having a community event that we're responsible for all the setup and all the cleanup in the community hall. So if if you want to volunteer, if you can get there maybe 8 o'clock, I would say, we'll have a list of duties for people to do with setting up the tables, and just setting everything up. So yeah, so it would definitely help. We could use volunteers for that day for both setup and cleanup.
Okay, yeah, I'll be there at 8.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, Shirley. Michelle.
And just so the community knows, this wellness event is covered by the budgets of our teams, right? Our different departments, right? So it's coming from what we have within.
That, and as well as council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, is there any further questions, comments? So we'll hopefully see everybody. And if you can't join in person, please join in on our live stream as well to see really the agenda of the day, and looking forward to seeing our community out and participating in our community healing event. Again, happening this Saturday, starts at 10 a.m., goes until 4 p.m., and it's located at the community hall. So again, looking forward to seeing everyone. That does complete our update.
Melba?
Sorry, Melba.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, you have our departments there. Have you assigned counselors in case someone or several people may need some assistance dealing with their challenges, emotions, all those things, that losses you've mentioned? Do you have some people assigned to that specifically?
Yeah, maybe sure.
And a special room.
Yes, Shirley maybe can touch on that, and maybe also Shirley, the transportation as well, for maybe people, we included that if for those who have transportation issues. So maybe want to touch on those two things, Shirley?
Sure. So yeah, we will have our services will be there. And I will give you the number to the there is a dedicated number. I just gotta pull it up here. So your contact for transportation is Darien Churchill. And the number's 519-445-2809.
Sorry, Shirley, can you repeat that? You cut out.
Yep, 519. Oh, sorry. Sorry, it's 519-445-2418. The name is Darien, D-A-R-I-A-N, Churchill, C-H-U-R-C-H-I-L-L.
Okay, thank you for that, Shirley. So again, that's for transportations. And again, to answer your question, Melba, that yes, our services will be there and we'll locate in terms of a separate room for any of those who may need.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you again to our planning committee and all of our partners and so forth. And again, do look forward to seeing our community at our event this Saturday. That does complete our political liaison meeting for February 13th. So at this point in time, I will look to a motion to adjourn.
I'll move. It's Hazel.
Moved by Hazel, seconder. Second by Helen. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Now to everybody for joining us this morning at Political Liaison, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow at General Council. Thank you and have a great Monday.